This video was brought to you in part by AmericanAquariumProducts.com.
Thanks for watching AquariumTech today. Before I get on with the video, I wanted to talk about that streaming service. I'm sure I've mentioned it, or if you guys have seen some of my later videos, I want to try a new stream service. Hopefully it will benefit you guys. And the website that I have it at is www.twitch.tv/CFL_Mike. Basically, the purpose of this is so you guys can ask me questions immediately and get immediate answers. And the cool part too is that you guys can sit there and watch me do gameplay, even play with me. But you know, it doesn't have to be about gaming. It's basically a way for you guys to get instant answers, be entertained, and on top of that, you know, it's easier for me too, because let's say, you know, before I go to bed, you can just, you know, I can just be playing my game and answer your question. So hopefully it'll work out for both of us, and if it becomes popular, maybe even try doing live stream shows, and maybe even try to get some other aquarium experts or somebody else from the industry. So that would be kind of cool. Let's see where that goes. The stream that I have set up now, I don't think it's popular enough to set up hours. I'll see how you guys like it for right now, and if you do, maybe we'll start, you know, moving forward. I wanted to talk about a dangerous subject in aquatics, exploding heaters, and yes, it's not a myth. This does happen. In fact, you can go on, you know, the internet, YouTube, and watch videos of people experimenting and stuff. And don't be fooled by any manufacturer, what anybody says. This can happen to any heater at any time. You know, you could go out and buy a JBJ or JBL, whatever it is, the True Temp Titaniums, something nice like that. You could plug it in, and it could, boom, explode the minute you plug it in. Well, not really, but it could, but it's probably not going to happen. Very unlikely. But my point is that this can happen to any heater. Usually it happens with age, but if you take care of your heaters right, this shouldn't be a problem, and we'll go ahead and talk about that. The reason usually this happens is because there's an excessive amount of heat and pressure that builds up in your heater. And how does that happen? Well, usually what happens is you have a switch, you know, that's connected to a temperature sensor, essentially your thermostat, and basically what'll happen is it'll get stuck on. It'll just sit there and excessively create heat, and you should notice this before, you know, it happens. So usually this doesn't happen to people that are paying attention. Usually it doesn't just happen out of the blue. Usually if you allow this to happen, it's due to negligence, I hate to say. And that's basically what happened to me here too. Yes, this is my heater, and we'll go ahead and talk about this, and this happened due to my negligence, and we'll talk about this. So basically, how can you prevent it? Now, there is problems with certain heaters on the market, and you know, there's some that have recalls and problems, and this one actually did have a recall on it, but that's not actually the reason why this happened. This was 100% my fault. This did not happen because this is the Marineland Stealth Pro series, and because I've been using this one for years and it didn't have a problem. And I have other Stealth Pros that I still use and work great. But again, it was my fault this happened, and I'll explain to you my personal case here. Basically, I had it in the tall hex tank. You guys might have seen in the background of a few videos. But basically, what happened was, because it's a tall tank, when you drain it, you know, it goes pretty low. And I didn't want to put my heater too low. Usually you should have your heater lower in the tank because, you know, heat rises, more efficient. But I did have it, you know, somewhat low in there for that reason. But I didn't want it too low so I could adjust the temperature and stuff. But so when I drained the water to do my water change, I was lazy and I wasn't unplugging my heater. You guys should do this, and for your filters too, you should do it, because it can create heat problems in your filter. Of course, I don't think your filters are going to explode, but the point is you want them to last. You know, good for them. Anyways, what would happen is because the air is usually cooler and it's harder for this thing to heat the air than it is the water, So basically what happens is it just gets stuck on because it's sitting there trying to heat your air, and especially if your house is air conditioned, and I think most people's are. So this is a real issue. That's why you should always follow the directions and unplug your heater whenever you're draining water. The other thing too is to pay attention to, if it's not a submersible heater, pay attention to the water line you're supposed to put it at. And if it's submersible, there's still a water line if you're not going to all the way submerge it. So you got to be careful, pay attention to this stuff. It's important because, for instance, if you don't put it in past the point where the temperature gauge is, this will happen. It'll basically get stuck reading the air temperature. It'll get stuck on, and basically what happened with mine is it would get so hot it would actually start melting the brackets. I had to throw the other one out. This one's still okay, but you can see here on the heater, it would act, this isn't like a glass or anything. This is one of those strong polymers or alloys, and you can see the marks where the brackets started to actually melt onto the heater. So, you know, this was purely my fault. I let this happen because this had been going on for a while. It got to the point where a couple times I started to see it smoke actually too. But I was being stupid and I saw that it was still keeping my temperature in the tank about right. So this thing, you know, definitely went through some abuse. Definitely not a bad heater. But even after seeing all this, I didn't unplug it or even take it out of my tank. So what I think happened is eventually, due to staying on so long and getting too hot, the gauge, like I said, the gauge or the on-off switch gets stuck, and the pressure just built, and boom. Luckily, that, like I said, that tank is tall, and it didn't really, you know, the water slowed this thing down, and it didn't have a lot of force by the time it hit the bottom of the tank or the glass, and so it didn't create a problem. But this can happen where it hits the tank so hard it can break your tank, and you have a huge mess to clean up. So this is something very important to pay attention to, guys. Usually aquarium glass is pretty strong. You'll be surprised how strong it is, but you know, this isn't something you want to take a chance on, because even though it didn't break my glass, I still had to completely drain my tank because there was a bunch of shielding and stuff that had gotten a big mess. There's like metal chunks everywhere all over my tank. And then the other thing is, you see these exposed wires? Here, we'll zoom in on them. I could have got electrocuted. Luckily, you know, I'm not an idiot, and, well, I am an idiot for letting this happen, but I unplugged it before I went to go grab it, but luckily none of my fish died or anything, so I got lucky there. But it could happen and be much worse for you. And then with glass heaters too, you gotta watch out for them cracking, because what can happen is, if you guys have ever seen with other stuff, especially like up north with cars, if you take, for instance, if you take a glass out of your freezer and then go run it out under really hot water, it might crack. So that's, you know, that's an extra precaution you got to watch out with glass heaters. That's why a lot of people are trying to move away from glass heaters. So, because actually, when if glass heaters were to shoot off, it actually wouldn't be as bad, because they could crack and break apart. Whereas this isn't gonna break apart that easily. But you can see the force was pretty great, because there's actually a crack in the side of this. So like I said, this can happen to anybody, guys. Usually the reason it happens is negligence, but because you should notice a rise in your tank temperature before this happens. Alright guys, if you have any other questions, feel free to ask me. Thanks for tuning in.